15 years ago, on the jagged, storm-beaten planet of Virelia, the air smelled of iron and moss. High above the twisting forests, cliffs rose like broken teeth into the gray sky. In one of the remote villages that clung to these cliffs, a young alien girl named Lyra ran through the narrow streets, her violet eyes wide with fear. Her family, once her protectors, now whispered with venom, jealous of her growing talents. Lyra had always been different. She could manipulate the faint pulses of energy in the world around her, a gift that scared those who were too small-minded to understand it. That night, under the cover of a violent storm, her uncle and two cousins cornered her near the cliff's edge. The wind tore at her hair and clothing, and lightning split the sky above. "You think you are better than us?" her uncle hissed, his clawed hands glinting in the stormlight. Lyra shook her head, her small body trembling, but her heart thumped with defiance. She refused to beg. With a cruel push, she was sent tumbling over the edge. Time seemed to slow as the wind carried her downward. Screams of both fear and rage echoed in the mountains, but no one came to her aid. She struck the rocks below, rolling through the shadows of the forest. Pain stabbed through her limbs, and darkness threatened to swallow her. But Lyra's will was stronger than the injuries that would have ended a weaker being. Somewhere, deep inside, a spark of her energy flared, helping her cling to life. A human explorer named Ethan had been mapping the cliffs that day. He was a tall man with sun-bleached hair, calloused hands, and eyes that had seen the edges of space. He had been studying the storm patterns above the cliffs when he saw the flash of violet, a body hurtling over the edge. Without hesitation, he had rushed toward the fall, but the storm was relentless. The rocks were jagged, slick with rain, and by the time he reached the bottom, Lyra had vanished from sight. He searched desperately, but only the faint trace of energy she left behind indicated she might have survived. He reported her death to the distant human council, believing he had done all he could. Years passed. Ethan returned to human space, haunted by the memory of Lyra's fall. He explored star systems and distant planets, mapping worlds few humans had seen, always carrying a shadow of guilt. Meanwhile, Lyra survived in the forest below the cliffs. She learned to move silently through the dense alien trees, hunting strange creatures for food and making shelters from the bones of beasts and the limbs of broken trees. Her injuries had healed, but the scars remained, a reminder of betrayal and survival. Time changed her. 15 years in the wild honed her powers into something extraordinary. Lyra could manipulate energy fields to heal herself, sense others from miles away, and even alter the flow of water and wind in her immediate surroundings. Despite her isolation, she had not forgotten the human who had seen her fall. She often whispered his name to the stars above, wondering if he still lived. The forest had become her kingdom, and she its silent, untouchable queen. Then came the message that would bring her past and present crashing together. The royal archives of Virelia's capital had sent a call across the galaxy for a human diplomat. The planet's political structure was fragile, with clans constantly vying for power. The council had noticed Ethan's previous explorations and reports. They believed only a human outsider could bring balance. Ethan, curious and drawn by memories he could not shake, returned to Virelia. He had no idea that Lyra was alive or that she had become more powerful than anyone in the capital could imagine. Ethan arrived at the planet under the guise of diplomacy, stepping into the bustling capital where spires of crystal and stone stretched toward a sky tinged with the colors of two suns. The streets were filled with alien life, from tentacled traders to bird-like messengers, but Ethan's eyes searched for one figure, the one who had haunted his dreams for over a decade. It was in the market district that he first saw her. Lyra, older, taller, and radiating an aura of quiet authority, moved among the people with a presence that demanded respect. Her violet eyes, still the same as when he had seen her fall, locked onto him. She stopped in her tracks, energy crackling faintly around her fingertips. "You," she said, her voice low but cutting. "You let me die." Ethan froze, guilt and relief washing over him. "I tried," he said, stepping forward cautiously. I couldn't reach you." "I thought you were gone." Lyra studied him for a long moment. The storm of years hung in her gaze, but beneath it she saw the truth. He had come back. She could sense it. His energy, human and familiar, carried the same thread that had once brushed against hers in the cliffs above the forest. Before they could speak further, a commotion erupted. A gang of raiders from a neighboring clan had begun attacking villagers near the market, stealing supplies and threatening innocent lives. Without hesitation, Lyra's instincts kicked in. Energy flared around her hand, sending the raiders flying backward. Ethan, trained in both strategy and combat, jumped into action, using makeshift barricades and his own weapons to assist the villagers. Together, they made an unstoppable team. The villagers stared in awe. Here was a human, working seamlessly with an alien who could bend energy itself to her will. The raiders fled, leaving a trail of destruction. But the immediate threat was over. Lyra turned to Ethan, her expression unreadable but tinged with a shadow of gratitude. "You see now," she said, "I survived." Ethan nodded, breathless. "And you are stronger than I ever imagined." Their reunion, though tense, had sparked a fragile alliance. Lyra and Ethan knew the political tensions of the planet would not wait. Other clans would see her powers and attempt to control or eliminate her. The human's experience and ingenuity could help her navigate these dangers. For the first time since her fall, Lyra felt the possibility of partnership, of trust, and maybe even something deeper. That evening, atop the highest balcony of the market tower, the twin suns dipped below the horizon, casting golden light over the city. Lyra looked out over the streets, the faint energy pulses of the people shimmering under her sight. "I was meant to die," she whispered. "And yet, here I stand." Ethan placed a hand on the balcony railing, not daring to touch her, yet feeling connected in a way he could not explain. "You are alive because you chose to fight," he said softly. "And now we have to fight together." As darkness fell, the capital seemed to hold its breath. The future was uncertain and the threats were many. Rival clans would not tolerate a young woman wielding such power. And yet, for the first time, Lyra and Ethan were united by more than survival. They were united by purpose. In the forest below the cliffs where Lyra had once fallen, shadows moved as if watching, unseen eyes taking note of her return. Not everyone would welcome her homecoming. But for now, she and Ethan stood ready. 15 years of survival, struggle, and pain had led to this moment. The girl who had been thrown from the cliff was no longer helpless. She was powerful, and with a human by her side, she was unstoppable. The night deepened, and the first hints of danger whispered on the wind. Lyra tightened her fists, feeling the energy swirl around her. Ethan stood close, prepared for whatever would come. Together, they would face enemies old and new. Together, they would challenge the destiny that had tried to destroy her so many years ago. The reunion had ended, but the true battle, the one that would decide the fate of Virelia, was only beginning. And neither human nor alien would step back. The dawn on Virelia's capital broke over the city like molten gold spilling across crystal spires. Lyra and Ethan stood on the balcony, surveying the bustling streets below. Though calm now, the city carried a tension that only an outsider like Ethan could sense. Whispers of unrest had already begun. Clans that had once tried to kill Lyra had learned she had survived, and many would stop at nothing to control her, or eliminate her entirely. Lyra's violet eyes scanned the horizon, noting movement in the shadows. She could sense their intent. Not every threat was visible to the eye. "They will come," she said quietly. "And they will test us," Ethan nodded. "Then we prepare. You have power, but you cannot fight them all alone." He studied her face, seeing both the child who had fallen from the cliff and the warrior she had become. "Together we can face them." Their first challenge came sooner than expected. A rival clan, the Kalari, struck under the cover of night, infiltrating the city through secret tunnels known only to a few. They aimed to kidnap Lyra, hoping to bargain for power with the council. But Lyra had anticipated such moves. Using her ability to sense energy, she detected their approach before they even reached the streets above. Ethan moved beside her, his instincts honed from years of exploration and combat. He directed city guards, set traps, and coordinated defenses with precision. Lyra, her energy glowing faintly in the dim light, struck with a combination of power and strategy, sending attackers flying back through the tunnels. Sparks of violet light illuminated the night as she struck at the intruders without mercy, yet with control. After the skirmish, Ethan helped the injured, directing the council to provide aid and maintaining calm among the frightened citizens. Lyra, standing tall despite exhaustion, watched him, a strange warmth filling her chest. She realized that humans, even without alien powers, could be just as formidable as the strongest clans, if they had courage and heart. The following days were a test of both strength and diplomacy. Rival clans sent envoys offering alliances, threats, and bribes. Ethan's presence as a human diplomat gave Lyra an advantage. Many underestimated the human, thinking he was just a visitor, but his knowledge of strategy, psychology, and alien cultures allowed him to read intentions, predict betrayals, and guide Lyra's responses. One afternoon, an unexpected visitor arrived at the palace gates. A cloaked figure approached, bowing low. "Princess Lyra," the voice said, "I bring news of a rebellion brewing beyond the northern forests. They wish to seize your lands and your people." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "And they will fail," she said. "We are not the helpless girl they remember." Ethan watched her, impressed. The fear she once carried had transformed into determination that inspired loyalty. He could see the effect she had on others, the villagers, the guards, even the council members. Her survival had made her more than a girl. She was a symbol, a beacon of hope and strength. The next week, they traveled north to confront the threat. The journey was perilous, with rough terrain, sudden storms, and hidden ambushes. Lyra moved like a shadow through the forest, her powers allowing her to manipulate the environment. Trees bent to shield them, streams shifted to hide their approach, and distant enemies felt the pressure of her presence even before they appeared. Ethan, armed with knowledge and human ingenuity, devised strategies that complemented her abilities. They created traps, used the terrain to their advantage, and moved silently like hunters. By the time they reached the rebel camp, the enemy had no idea they were coming. The confrontation was swift and decisive. Lyra unleashed controlled bursts of energy that incapacitated key leaders, while Ethan coordinated maneuvers that prevented the rebels from regrouping. By the time the sun rose, the rebellion had collapsed, leaving the surviving rebels to surrender. Lyra's reputation grew not as a mere survivor, but as a powerful and wise leader. As they returned to the capital, Lyra began to trust Ethan more deeply. She saw not just a human beside her, but a partner who respected her strength, shared her burdens, and understood the responsibilities she carried. For the first time in years, she allowed herself a brief moment of hope, a belief that perhaps she was not alone in her journey. Back in the capital, political tension continued to rise. Some council members feared Lyra's growing influence, seeing her as a threat to their power. They attempted to manipulate public opinion, spreading rumors and questioning her loyalty. Ethan, aware of the dangers of misinformation, worked tirelessly to counter these schemes. He addressed the council, spoke to the citizens, and used his human perspective to mediate conflicts that alien leaders could not resolve alone. One evening, a private meeting with the council turned tense. "Princess Lyra," one elder said, "we cannot ignore the influence of the human. Your alliance with him could undermine our traditions." Lyra's gaze was sharp. "And yet it has saved our people from destruction. Perhaps it is time we embrace new ways, not cling to fear." Ethan remained silent, letting her words carry the weight they deserved. The council members, realizing her resolve, reluctantly agreed to support her leadership, but many continued to watch her closely. Meanwhile, whispers of Lyra's power spread beyond the capital. Distant clans, hearing of the girl who had survived a fall from the cliffs and returned stronger, began to send envoys seeking alliance, while others plotted in secret to capture or eliminate her. Lyra and Ethan knew that their greatest challenges were still ahead. One night, atop the cliffs where Lyra had once fallen, she and Ethan watched the twin suns set. The wind carried memories of the past, a reminder of how far she had come. "I should have died there," Lyra said quietly, touching the rocks where her small hands had scraped against the stone so long ago. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. "You didn't, you fought, and now you lead." Lyra turned to him, her eyes reflecting both the fading sunlight and the faint glow of her energy. "And you?" she asked softly. "You came back after all these years, why?" Ethan looked out over the forest below, then back at her. "Because no one deserves to face the world alone. You survived once, and I will not let you face it again without help." Their bond, forged in survival and strengthened through trials, was no longer just about trust. It had become something deeper, a partnership that bridged species, cultures, and centuries of history. Together they represented the possibility of a new future for Virelia, A future where strength was measured not by fear or power alone, but by courage, loyalty, and unity. The following months tested them in ways they had not anticipated. Hidden enemies attempted sabotage and mercenaries tried to infiltrate the capital. Lyra's powers and Ethan's strategies were tested repeatedly, yet with each victory their influence grew. Citizens began to rally around them, inspired by the story of the girl who had been thrown from the cliffs and the human who had once tried to save her. Finally, the time came for Lyra to assume her place officially within the royal hierarchy. A ceremony was held at the central plaza, where thousands gathered. She stood beside Ethan, her aura calm but powerful, radiating authority and wisdom beyond her years. The council presented her with the royal emblem, a symbol not just of survival but of leadership, hope, and change. Lyra looked at Ethan. "I could not have reached this point alone," she admitted. "You have been by my side, guiding, protecting, and believing in me." Ethan smiled, feeling the weight of the journey lift slightly. "And you've shown me what it means to survive, to rise, and to lead. You are the reason we are here." As they raised their hands together, the citizens cheered and energy pulsed faintly from Lyra's fingertips, illuminating the plaza with a soft glow. For the people of Virelia, this was not just the rise of a royal, it was a new era. A symbol that humanity and alien civilizations could collaborate, learn from one another, and achieve greatness together. The threats were not entirely gone. There would always be those who sought power through fear, and distant factions still plotted in silence. But Lyra and Ethan had proven that courage, partnership, and understanding could overcome even the most entrenched hatred. At the cliff's edge where Lyra had once been cast down, she stood silently, feeling the wind rush past her. The scars of her past remained, but they were no longer a source of pain. They were reminders of her strength. Beside her, Ethan stood unwavering. Together they had not only survived, they had changed the destiny of a planet. Lyra turned to him, a faint smile on her lips. 15 years ago I could not imagine this. Now I cannot imagine facing the future without you." Ethan nodded. "And I will not let you. Not now, not ever." The twin suns dipped below the horizon once more, casting a golden glow over the cliffs and forests. A new chapter had begun, not just for Lyra and Ethan, but for all of Virelia. The girl who had been thrown from the cliffs was no longer a victim. She was a leader, a warrior, and a symbol of hope. And the human who had once tried to save her had become her partner, her ally, and the one who stood with her as they faced whatever the future might bring. The wind carried their laughter across the cliffs, mingling with the songs of birds and the whispers of the forest. Together they had proven that survival, courage, and loyalty could overcome betrayal and hatred. Together they had forged a bond that would endure, a partnership that could shape the destiny of worlds. And as night fell over,